The politically motivated witch hunt of Donald Trump has been described as a turning point for the nation that prides itself on its robust justice system. It is now clear that the investigation being pursued by Alvin Bragg, an elected Democrat, has ushered in a dark era for the country. In the aftermath of the indictment, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan promised to undertake an oversight investigation into Bragg's policies. He argued the indictment was a clear attempt to interfere with the 2024 election and vowed to investigate whether ex-presidents are being subjected to politically motivated state investigations and prosecutions. Now, a former prosecutor who led the district attorney's investigation into Trump's finances is set to be questioned about the case against the former president. Attorney Michael Jaafar joins us now to give us his insights on the case. Thank you for joining me. Jordan believes some of the former prosecutor Pomeranz's comments suggest a political motivation on Bragg's part. Pomeranz is now set to testify before Congress in May. What are we likely to get out of that questioning?
So basically, here's what to expect with the questioning. The whole country and the world is going to be shown the political motivations behind Michael Pomeranz and the entire New York District Attorney's Office. They used a system that was not meant to be political. It's meant to be apolitical, and they used it in a very political way to indict a former president who is running for re-election to be president again. This is a big black eye for our country. It's a black eye for the rule of justice. And this move by Jim Jordan to investigate Pomeranz and question him is going to be good politics for Republicans, but it's going to be bad. It's going to be a bad look for the United States.
Oh, this entire catastrophe is a bad look for the United States, if you ask me. What do you think is going to be the outcome of it? Will there be anything change meaningfully, or is it just going to be an opportunity for the Republicans to show their supporter base that, yep, the swamp is real and this is how they operate?
Here's what I think is going to happen. The American institutions had been withering away slowly over the past few decades. When this country was founded, right, it was founded by a collection of gentlemen that believed in the rule of law. One of them was the second president of the United States, John Adams. He became famous by defending British soldiers who killed protesters, and he became the most reviled man in the United States, but he did it, even though he disagreed with what they did, in order to show that the United States, at that time it wasn't even a country, believes in the rule of law. In the past few decades, that rule has been withered away by moves like this, like DA Alvin Bragg. This goes against the foundations of the justice system. So what I think is going to happen with this is former presidents are going to get indicted going forward. Every single time something like this happens, the other side does it again, right? Every single time one party has crossed the lines and broken the decorum that existed between them, the other party did it, and then they always did it, and they always justified it. They cannot help themselves. So what I think is going to happen is, you know, Joe Biden, when he's no longer president, other Democrats, other Republicans are going to get indicted on very dubious grounds. I mean, this is not something you would indict somebody who's not named Donald Trump for. So now they're going to indict one another. It's going to be a big problem.
But you do wonder whether the Republicans have the killer instinct to pursue the Democrats like the Democrats pursue them. You can remember the lock her up chants that Donald Trump copped in 2016 when he suggested that they were going to go after Hillary Clinton and hold her accountable. And of course, in power, he never pursued that. But now a line has been crossed. And do you think the Republicans will behave in the same way as the Democrats have once they're in power, or will they think better of pursuing that action given the consequences it has for the country?
They're already doing it. By them bringing in a former prosecutor from New York, Pomeranz, and questioning him, think about why they're questioning him. They've announced, we want to see if you are trying to subvert the election, and we want to see if you are using resources for political motivations. So they're already doing it. They didn't wait for there to be a Republican president. They're doing it now. So this is a harbinger of things to come. This is a prediction of what's going to come of this. When I first analyzed this case, I said that Alvin Bragg broke a case that said only break in case of emergency. He broke it for no reason, for dubious reasons. And now he has opened Pandora's box. He cannot control what's going to come.
Well, on Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, you have accused him of trying to fulfill a campaign promise with this witch hunt. Just tell me a little bit more about him. What drives him? What does he hope to personally get out of this? And does he appreciate the magnitude of what he's unleashed?
So look, in our country, there are a few major cities that are heavily Democratic, heavily liberal, right? So Alvin Bragg ran for office on a campaign promise, which you should not have a campaign promise to indict a person, right? But he ran on a campaign promise to indict Donald Trump. He is in an ecosystem that heavily hates Trump, right? But when he ran for office, he did not show restraint. And now he's basically fulfilling that campaign promise. So the people around him and the voices around him are pushing him to do it. In my opinion, I don't know Alvin Bragg personally, but in my opinion, it seems to me like he needed to do this in order to keep his base around him. If you notice, 2 prosecutors that worked for him resigned because he was not moving fast enough, right? So if that shows you exactly the motivations and the pressures around him, and that is why the Republicans are bringing one of the former prosecutors to Congress to testify about it. He wrote a book about a prosecution that was still underway, right? And he was not even allowed to write about it. So that shows you how politically motivated these creatures are.
It's just incredible for someone in Australia to hear a DA running a campaign on the promise of arresting or prosecuting a particular individual. It sounds like Banana Republic conduct. You would not expect that to be happening in an advanced nation, and yet here we are. Now, I want to ask you about this NBC poll that shows 70% of GOP voters stand behind Trump. How do you think the indictment will impact his 2024 run? Can he win a general election if he is facing these charges?
In the United States, there's a weird rule. You can run for president and be president even if you're indicted for crimes and even if you're in jail. So yes, he is allowed to run for president and he is allowed to win and he is allowed to be president. Theoretically speaking, he could be the president of the United States from a jail cell. So he can do it. Now, what do I think, how do I think this is going to impact? Well, the day that the indictment was announced, they tripled their fundraising, his campaign, and people started throwing money at him. So people in the United States want to see this show. He is leading in the polls, and there are really legitimate candidates that could be excellent presidents that are behind him in the polls. And these people are Boy Scouts. They're not being indicted for hush money to a former porn star. If you would have told me 20 years ago that a Republican would pay hush money to a porn star, run for president, and be and leading, I would tell you you're nuts.
But here we are. Here we are, 2023. And just finally, you mentioned earlier that we're going to see this tit-for-tat action continuing. Certainly the Biden family seems to have a few skeletons in the closet with their business dealings. Are we going to see charges or investigations launched into not just Hunter Biden, but the Biden family, other members of the Biden family?
I think you're going to see charges on every family that runs for president for the presidential seat for a very long time to come. Maybe this even becomes, like, unfortunately, like the way it's done in my country. I hope that doesn't happen, but I think it's going to happen. And yes, I think you're going to see charges against the Biden family. I'm not saying they would be legitimate. I'm not even saying I'm not even rendering an opinion on them. But if you ask me, do I think we're going to see it? Yeah, of course. Because of what's happening to Trump, you're going to see a tit for tat from the other party. And it's sad and it's unfortunate and it shouldn't be that way.
Michael Jaafar, it's been fascinating speaking with you. Thank you for joining me.